A train crosses a quiet Swiss valley beneath peaks that seem completely exposed. Snow, granite, forest, and open sky leave little room for anything to hide. Then, beside an ordinary mountain road, a seam appears in the rock. Behind it is steel. Beyond the steel is a corridor disappearing into the mountain. This is the image that has created one of Switzerland's most persistent modern myths, that entire banks, gold reserves, and secret cities are buried inside the Alps. The truth is more complex, and in many ways more remarkable. Switzerland did not construct one enormous hidden vault. Over more than a century, it built a distributed underground system of forts, command posts, shelters, protected archives, and concealed infrastructure. The mountains became not simply a border, but a machine for national survival. The story began before the Second World War. Modern fortification work around the Gotthard region started in the late 19th century, followed by major works near St. Maurice. These locations were not chosen for romance. They controlled the narrow routes through which armies, railways, and supplies had to move. A fortress placed above a valley could threaten a road or railway far below, while the surrounding rock provided protection that ordinary surface buildings could not match. But artillery hidden in a mountain could not operate by instinct. Surveyors climbed the Alps with measuring instruments and created secret maps at a scale far more detailed than the maps available to the public. Between 1888 and 1952, Swiss topographers documented fortified regions with extraordinary precision. Contours, slopes, glaciers, forests, and lines of fire were converted into calculations. The mountain had to be understood mathematically before it could be used militarily. In 1940, the meaning of this work changed dramatically. France had fallen, Italy had entered the war, and Switzerland was surrounded by Axis-controlled territory. General Henri Guesclin announced that the army's defense would concentrate on the Alpine region. The strategy became known as the National Redoubt. The redoubt was not a single bunker, and it was never a magical shield. It was a defensive system centered on strategic fortress regions, including St. Maurice in the west, the Gotthard in the center, and Sargans in the east. These positions guarded approaches, transport corridors, and the routes connecting northern and southern Europe. If invasion came, the army intended to withdraw major forces into the mountains, keep key passages under fire, and make the occupation of the Alpine core extremely costly. The plan carried a severe contradiction. Much of Switzerland's population, industry, and largest cities lay outside the high mountain fortress zone. Historians have therefore debated both the military value and the political meaning of the redoubt. Switzerland's survival during the war cannot be explained by fortifications alone. Diplomacy, economic relations, geography, and the changing priorities of the Axis powers also mattered. Yet the underground works were real, extensive, and designed for prolonged use. At the Gotthard Pass, the former Sasso de Pigna fortress reveals what the idea required in practice. Deep galleries connected gun positions, ammunition magazines, command spaces, and troop accommodation. The installation remained secret and operational until 2001. Since 2012, parts of it have been opened to visitors as Sasso San Gottardo. Inside, there is nothing luxurious. The walls are rough or lined with concrete. Steel doors divide pressure zones and protected compartments. Narrow rails once moved ammunition through the galleries. Ventilation systems pulled air through rooms that could not depend on open windows. Water had to be controlled, electricity maintained, food stored, and waste removed. A mountain fortress was not simply carved space. It was an artificial environment that had to keep hundreds of mechanical and human routines functioning underground. The soldiers who served in these installations lived close to the machinery. They slept in compact rooms, ate in practical kitchens, and passed through the same corridors between barracks, command stations, and gun chambers. At Fort Furigen, near Lake Lucerne, two artillery guns were intended to help block an enemy advance toward the Alpine region. The fort remained active through the Cold War, and its preserved rooms now show how ordinary military life continued behind a cliff face that gave almost nothing away. Concealment was part of the design. Entrances, observation points, and firing positions were blended into rock, vegetation, or familiar architecture. Some defensive structures resembled barns, houses, or sections of natural cliff. The purpose was not to create a theatrical secret. It was to delay recognition long enough for the position to survive and operate. The defense system also reached beyond the forts themselves. Strategic bridges, tunnels, and rail lines were prepared so they could be denied to an invader. The Gotthard route was especially important because it linked Germany and Italy through neutral Switzerland. The possibility that Switzerland could destroy or block this corridor gave the country a form of leverage, but it also meant that its own infrastructure had been designed with destruction in mind. After 1945, the underground world did not disappear. The Cold War expanded the logic of protection. Existing fortresses were adapted, new command facilities were built, and protected spaces became part of civilian life. This second system must be distinguished from the Alpine Redoubt. Civil defense shelters were placed beneath homes, apartment blocks, hospitals, and public buildings across the country. Switzerland now maintains about 370,000 shelters, enough places for nearly the entire resident population, although local shortages can still exist. The result is a landscape with several underground layers. One layer belongs to artillery and military command. Another belongs to civil protection. A third was created by private institutions that saw the same advantages in rock, concrete, and distance. A documented example appeared during the Second World War in Sonnen, near Gstaad. An insurance company established a protected wartime headquarters disguised as a group of alpine chalets. Behind the familiar wooden appearance were reinforced walls, walk-in vaults, and space for early data processing equipment. Employees worked there during the war, and valuable documents and reserves could be moved away from exposed cities. It looked like a mountain retreat because concealment worked best when the secure building belonged visually to its surroundings. That example helps explain why stories about hidden Swiss banks feel plausible. Switzerland does hold substantial gold reserves. The Swiss National Bank reports 1,040 tons of gold, with about 70% stored in Switzerland and the remainder in the United Kingdom and Canada. But the precise storage sites are not publicly disclosed. Without a named installation, documentary evidence, or verifiable location, an image of a gigantic bank carved into an anonymous mountain remains a claim, not a fact. What can be verified is already extraordinary. From the mid-1990s, military reforms made thousands of combat, supply, and command installations unnecessary. Preservation organizations estimate that roughly 13,000 such structures became surplus. Some were sealed, some were sold, others found unexpected second lives. Former bunkers have been converted into museums, storage rooms, cheese facilities, mushroom farms, hotels, and secure data centers. In one former military bunker in the Alps, server systems now occupy spaces once planned for war. The protected shell remains useful, but the object being defended has changed from ammunition and command communications to digital information. This transformation reveals the deeper continuity in the Swiss underground story. The technology changes, yet the attraction of the mountain remains the same. mass, distance, stable temperature, restricted access, and a structure that is difficult to observe from outside. Still, the Alps should not be imagined as hollow. There is no single underground country connecting every fortress, shelter, and vault. The sites were built in different periods for different institutions, and many were never linked to one another. Their unity exists in strategy rather than architecture. Today, a visitor can walk through preserved gun rooms, see original barracks, and follow galleries that were once absent from public maps. Outside, the mountain quickly becomes ordinary again. Grass covers concrete edges. Snow erases tracks. A narrow opening becomes another shadow in the rock. That is the real hidden world inside the Swiss Alps. Not a fantasy bank filled with endless gold, but a vast historical habit of turning geography into protection. Switzerland did not merely defend the mountains. For generations, it designed the mountains to defend Switzerland.